comes from Ezekiel 47, 1-12. In my vision, the man brought me back to the entrance of the temple. There I saw a stream flowing east from beneath the door of the temple and passing to the right of the altar on its south side. The man brought me outside the wall through the north gateway and led me around the eastern entrance. There I could see the water flowing out through the south side of the east gateway. Measuring as he went, he took along the stream for 1,750 feet, and then led me across. The water was up to my ankles. He measured off another 1,750 feet, and led me across again. This time the water was up to my knees. After another 1,750 feet, it was up to my waist. Then he measured another 1,750 feet, and the river was too deep to walk across. It was deep enough to swim in, but too deep to walk through. He asked me, "Have you been watching, Son of Man?" Then he led me back along the riverbank. When I returned, I was surprised by the sight of many trees growing on both sides of the river. Then he said to me, "This river flows east through the desert into the valley of the Dead Sea. The waters of this stream will make the salty waters of the Dead Sea fresh and pure. There will be swarms of living things wherever the water of this river flows. Fish will be abound in the Dead Sea, for its waters will become fresh. Life will flourish wherever this water flows. Fishermen will stand along the shores of the Dead Sea. All the way from En-Gedi to Enelim, the shores will be covered with nets drying in the sun. Fish of every kind will fill the Dead Sea, just as they fill the Mediterranean. But the marshes and swamps will not be purified. They will still be salty. Fruit trees of all kinds will grow along both sides of the river. The leaves of these trees will never turn brown and fall, and there will always be fruit on their branches. There will be a new crop every month, for they are watered by the river flowing through the temple. The fruit will be for food and the leaves for healing. This is the word of God's holy word. Oh my goodness. This is the word of God's holy word.
Amen. Pray with me. Consecrate me now to thy service, Lord, by the power of grace divine. Let my soul look up with a steadfast hope, and my will be lost in thine. Grant, O God, that the words of my mouth and the meditation of each of our hearts be gathered at thy view, measured and found always to be acceptable in your sight. God, who is our strength, our rock, and our Redeemer. It's in the name of Christ that we pray. Amen. I've told you before about my love for our family farm in southern Missouri. I have a picture here of the little creek that runs all through our property. And I love to walk along this creek. We call it Lost Creek. That's the actual name of it. I'm not sure why. I mean, you could get lost walking around it. Sometimes there's more water in it than others. There are times that it is completely dried up. When I was a kid, I would follow it for long distances on foot or more often on four-wheeler because that just made more sense. There's a bridge just near my grandparents' house. It says that there's a 3-ton weight limit on it. I'm not sure that I would trust it even for that much. But Lost Creek runs right under it. And I used to sit on the edge of the bridge and watch the creek pass beneath. And sometimes there would be fish, always there were snakes. But oftentimes, there was a steady, soothing sound of water trickling downstream. And I always found that very relaxing. Quite relaxing and enchanting. And it's enchanting how a small stream like this is formed and makes its way through the land. Its melody calms my soul, but its quiet determination teaches me wisdom. You see, as water gathers into a stream, it starts running down through the forest, but it's not long before it meets its first of many obstacles. Earth, rocks, bushes, fallen logs. But over the years, with relentless determination, the stream finds its way, twisting in, around, over all of these different obstacles, until it reaches its final destination in the ocean. It's always amazed me to think that my little lost creek pushes its way through every impediment, joins forces with other determined little creeks all around Wayne County, Missouri, winding and turning into the St. Francis River, then into the Mississippi River, and finally into the Gulf of Mexico and New Orleans. Great, what's the point? When I think of this passage of scripture that Kelsey read for us, this vision that Ezekiel had of water flowing from the temple and changing everything in its path. And when I think of what we're celebrating today, I realize that the story of this church is much the same. I've done a lot of reading and research this week. You know I'm a history buff, and I like looking into all of that. It all started when that great circuit rider, the pioneer of Illinois Methodism, one of the fathers of the Second Great Awakening, Peter Cartwright, had a camp meeting near what we know as Tremont. It started with a small but determined and passionate group of people touched by the Spirit. These ordinary people came together with a dream. They started to meet together. They started to worship God. In 1891, the Reverend Alonzo Smith was appointed to our circuit, and he, along with 7 Methodists, organized the first Methodist Episcopal Church of Tremont. The small congregation, they really struggled to survive. Really struggled to survive. They initially only met on the 4th Sunday of each month. Some of you would really like that. They met in borrowed space in the Congregational Church building, which stood on the southwest corner of our 1904 property, and they had a large boardwalk leading to Sampson Street. In that moment, as they gathered together, a small stream started. And even though they struggled to survive, they pressed on determined. On October 15th, 1900, the small Methodist congregation leased space from what was known as the Liberal Church, which stood about where our post office is today. This is it's hazy, but you can see how small it was. That was the last of the original Tremont Church buildings. And they met there, but in meeting there, they found more obstacles that their stream was running into. It soon became clear that the Liberal Church building was inadequate for Sunday school purposes. There were a lot of repairs and improvements that needed to be made, including a new roof, and there was this new thing called electricity, and the Liberal Church didn't have it. The stream could not be stopped. On January 4th, 1903, the administrative board minutes say, quote, "The subject of building a church was then brought up. No vote was taken, but all were urged by the pastor to give it prayerful thought so it might be more fully discussed at the coming charge conference." Hello. At that next charge conference, a building committee was appointed, and their first task was to choose a site and provide an estimate for the cost of the new church building. Those that have been on next team and building committee, you know what an obstacle that is. But again, the stream would not be stopped, and soon something gave way that made their search a little easier. The Congregational Church decided that they were going to close, and they gifted their lot to the Methodist Episcopal Church. The sanctuary would be built at a cost of $4,975. $4,975. But that didn't include heating or furnishings, so the total estimate came to about $6,500. And raising these funds was a tremendous challenge for a church with a membership of only 67. The difficulty was compounded by the fact that on the 16th of September 1903, the congregation paid their final installment in the pastor's salary for that year. They paid quarterly, $10. And that left a balance in the operating fund of 39 cents. This is the problem. But on July 15, 1904, the stream moved further as work began on the Methodist Episcopal Church. They ran into the same kind of obstacles that we understand today. They had issues with contractors and building permits, and I'm sure their building permits were a lot easier to get. But they started to work. And the Tremont newspaper said the work will be pushed from this time until completed. Nothing was going to stop them at this point. And on Christmas Day, 1904, the new building was opened and dedicated on Christmas Day. Now came a new obstacle: debt. But they believed that God had led them to this point, and they would continue to trust in God. At the dedication service on Christmas Day, all of the Tremont churches were represented. An offering was received for $2,000 towards the debt. That certainly helped. By 1911, the building was free of debt and the mortgage was burned. In case you're counting, that's 7 years. I challenge you to do better this time. The stream continued to push past through the obstacles and give thanks to God. The congregation continued to grow. There were problems and there were changes and there were disappointments. Sometimes the stream got really deep. That was probably in board meetings. Sometimes it got narrow and it almost dried up. Then, about 12:30 a.m. on March 19th, 1940, a fire broke out at Beecham's grocery store. Sparks and burning debris blew into the church attic and ignited some of the rafters. We saw those rafters as the 1904 building came down, but they were still charred. The church became unusable for quite some time. Easter services had to be held in the community building, and after that, services were held in the high school gymnasium where the grade school is now. The church was repaired and rededicated on July 14th, 1940. But that wasn't the end of the obstacles. Some of the same obstacles that we have in ministry today. Reverend Sheldon Myers kept meticulous notes during his pastorate. Reading through his journals is phenomenal. In 1941, he wrote this. See if this ever sounds like a conversation you had in a ministry meeting. The junior high boys and girls do not behave. In spite of all we can do, we have this discipline problem. In 1947, he wrote, the Methodist Youth Foundation just barely keeps going. The high school young people seem too busy with other interests. Hello. But the stream continued because there was gospel work to be done. In the spring of 1952, ground was broken for a new annex to the sanctuary to house 8 Sunday school classrooms. The ribbon for the new addition was cut on April 26, 1953 by 5-year-old Jane Betts. In 1984, the fellowship hall was added, and in 2004, this building was completed and the ribbon was cut. Look, there's Jane again. And our liturgist from this morning. Wow. We moved into this beautiful space. Large amounts of money was raised, and there was still another obstacle. Despite all the money that was raised, $1.5 million still had to be borrowed for completion. But that couldn't stop the stream. A 20-year loan that we're going to burn today was paid off just over 5 years early. Talk about pushing through. On August 9th, 2019, we made that last payment. The story of the stream of this congregation is so much more than the buildings. That's just how we track the milestones. It's what the buildings represent, though. Since this sanctuary opened, I think we have another picture of this sanctuary in case you forgot where you're sitting. Since this sanctuary opened, 133 people have professed faith in Jesus Christ before this altar. 79 people have been baptized here. Here in this room, we've mourned our dead. We've rejoiced as couples were united in marriage. Here we hear the sounds of the sanctuary choir, the children's choir at the 11 o'clock service, of our band, of our beautiful pipe organ. Here this congregation worked together to complete the basement without incurring additional debt. Here we've begun new and exciting ministries, most recently the well. From here we've sent out nearly $1 million to local and global missions. Here in this room, we've heard the gospel proclaimed and celebrated the sacrament of Holy Communion countless times. This summer, we broke ground on a new Family Life Center. Picture of that. What an exciting day as we plan together for a better church for our children and our grandchildren and for those that we haven't even met yet. The stream that started in 1891 with a circuit riding pastor and 7 Methodists has become through the ages a river. And God only knows the impact that this church has had on people sitting in this room, but also on countless others around the world because of your generosity and the reach of the river flowing. Remember back to Ezekiel's vision. As the water from the altar flowed, it got deeper. And it brought life wherever it went. As it flowed into the Dead Sea, it brought life even there. Great fruit trees grew along both sides of the river. They never died. They never lost their leaves. They always had fruit on their branches. All of this was because a stream started to trickle from the altar in the temple. A stream started here in 1891. Today it's become a mighty rushing river that brings life wherever it goes. But here's what I really want you to hear from Ezekiel's vision. In verse 11 it says, the marshes and swamps will not be purified. They will still be salty. Why? Because they're not moving. If a stream stops pushing through the obstacles, it becomes a swamp. It stagnates. It turns into a marsh. It stinks. Mosquitoes and bugs lay their eggs in it. It becomes dead water. The burning of this mortgage this morning is not the end. When we said goodbye to the 1904 building, it was not the end. Building this family life center is not the end. That's not the destiny or the dream that God has for us. The stream must go on giving life to the next generation. We will keep moving. We will keep cutting through the obstacles. We will keep believing and trusting in God for the next set of miracles. The stream that is Tremont United Methodist Church must keep flowing. It must keep moving. We must keep cutting through the obstacles until our Lord returns and we reach our destination that is the glassy sea. So we're going to burn a mortgage this morning. We're going to dedicate this space. But this is only the beginning. By God's grace, we're just getting started. Let's pray together. Lord, I thank you for this vision that Ezekiel had of the life that came from the temple. And our location here, this temple, this house that is Tremont United Methodist Church, your Spirit has brought life to us, to those we encounter, to those we haven't even met yet. Help us not to slow down. Help us not to stop. Help us not to stagnate, but to keep cutting through every obstacle and impediment by the power of your Holy Spirit, that we may remain vital and growing and committed to the mission that we have of making disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. Help us to know that your dream and your vision for this church is that this is only the beginning. In the name of Christ we pray. Amen. Before we burn the mortgage, I have one more note to share, much shorter, and you'll understand why when you hear who it's from. Tremont family, I'm so impressed with all of you for having paid off the mortgage in 15 years. Perhaps we should have built the addition at the same time we built the sanctuary. Perhaps we underestimated your generosity. Reverend Bess Whitley sends his congratulations to you. For those who are helping with the mortgage burning, come forward.
Dear friends, now that we have retired all indebtedness on this building, let us freely dedicate it and rejoice in its holy use.
On behalf of the trustees, I present this building to be rededicated for the worship of God and the service of all people.
By what name is this house known?
Tremont United Methodist Church.
Tremont United Methodist Church. And the water runs through it. Let me tell you how it runs in a different way. as I share a note with you. Dear Reverend Frank, grace and peace in the name and spirit of Jesus, the risen Christ. I wanted to take this opportunity to join Tremont United Methodist Church in your mortgage burning celebration. Congratulations. Paying off a mortgage is a major accomplishment, and you succeeded in doing this 5 years early. Your stewardship and faithfulness in the Lord and in your giving have led to this wonderful celebration. The Lord has blessed you tremendously, and He will move your church forward in new ways. Well, this is a very important milestone that needs to be greatly celebrated. Remember that it is but one milestone. You've already begun working on the next milestone, your Family Life Center. I look forward to seeing what other milestones Tremont United Methodist Church accomplishes for the glory of God in the coming future. The best is yet to come. Please know that I will continue to remember you in prayer in the weeks and months ahead as you journey into new paths. May God continue to hold you close, granting you the richest of blessings. God bless Reverend Dr. Frank J. Beard, Bishop of the Illinois Great Rivers Conference. If you were to see the official from which I'm reading, it says in very small font, share any reflections you may want. That's me. This is what I can say to you as your district superintendent. From the beginning of holding the office that I've been assigned, I have been deeply moved by the hearts of this place. Let me explain that a little deeper. When I first met you in a church conference, there was great concern. It could have been a part of the story, Larry. Concern about, are we going to be willing to pay this off? And how much time will it take? We don't know what the future holds, but we're struggling along the way. That's the summary of what was said to me. We cannot pay 100% of our apportionments. We're doing good just to manage. Right. But that isn't where you stayed. You kept moving, and if I dare say, in the streams of faith. You believed that you could do more than what you had done because your hearts huddled closer to the Spirit of God. So in that time of paying off this mortgage, 5 years earlier, 3 years ago, halfway through for me, you paid 100% of your apportionments, and you haven't stopped. But that's not all. You're not just focused on self. You know, there's a difference. In a church, many times there's this central focus of we just have to take care of ourselves, and that too leads to stagnation and death. But you wouldn't let that happen. You sought a balance of taking care of self, but in addition, taking care of others. And thus, health continued to make its way into this holy place. It's a great day for accomplishment, but I believe it's a greater day just because the Spirit of God being not just in this place, but reflected through your hearts. That's what makes this place great. Thanks be to God. Dear friends, Rejoice that God so moved the hearts of people that this house has been built for praise and prayer. Rejoice in the faithfulness of our covenant, God, that it is now dedicated free of debt.
I think we all need to do this. Might grab a corner here. A top corner. Don't burn your hand. There. I hope not.
To the glory of God who has called us by grace, to the honor of Jesus Christ who loved us and gave himself for us, to the praise of the Holy Spirit who illumines and sanctifies us.
For the worship of God in prayer and praise, for the preaching of the everlasting gospel, for the celebration of the holy sacraments, we dedicate this house.
For the comfort of all who mourn, for strength to those who are tempted, for light to those who seek the way.
We dedicate this house.
For the hallowing of family life, for teaching and guiding the young, for the perfecting of the saints.
We dedicate this house. For the conversion of sinners, for the promotion of holiness, for the extension of God's reign, we dedicate this house.
In the unity of the faith, in the bond of brotherhood and sisterhood, in love and goodwill to all,
we dedicate this house.
in gratitude for the labors of all who love and serve this church, in loving remembrance of those who have finished their course, in the hope of eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord.
We dedicate this house.
O eternal God, mighty in power and incomprehensible majesty, whom the heavens cannot contain, much less the walls of temples made with hands, you have promised your special presence whenever 2 or 3 are assembled in your name to offer praise and prayer. By the power of your Holy Spirit, consecrate this house of your worship. Bless us and sanctify what is done here, that this place may be holy for us and a house of prayer for all people.
Guide and empower in this place by the same Spirit the proclamation of your word and the celebration of your sacraments, the pouring out of prayer and the singing of your praise, professions of faith and testimonies to your grace, the joining of men and women in marriage and the celebration of death and resurrection.
Save us from that failure of vision which would confine our worship within these walls. But send us out from here to be your servants in the world, sharing the blessings of Christ with the world he came to redeem.
Now, O God, sanctify this place, for everything in heaven and on earth is yours. Yours, Lord, is the dominion, and you are exalted as head above all. Amen.
It's all God. And we didn't set off any fire on them. That's even better. Let's stand together and celebrate our resolve to continue pushing through by singing, "We Are the Church."